think he learned all his,
Egypt, like everywhere.
I think he learned all
England.
his hi-hat stuff and all that. He learned in Africa, right?
He
When his
didn't
dad was
say
stationed in
that. He
Africa?
didn't say that.
Oh, no?
He
I think I
didn't
read
say,
that
I've never
somewhere.
heard. I've never
Oh,
heard
yeah?
that he
Hey,
never heard him saying that.
look, here is everybody out there in YouTube land. This is, welcome to the inaugural show. I appreciate you being here. And my first guest has been a secret, but it is a secret no longer. It is none other than Andrzej Ryszka. How the hell are you?
Hi, Gavin.
Hey, good to see you, my friend.
Very nice to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invitation, man.
Yeah,
It's really good to be here.
yeah, I'm glad.
I'm good.
You
I'm
good?
Yes, I'm good. I'm good, man. You know, playing my music and still, you know, being fresh and vital.
What's new? What are you working on? What's the? You have any new projects you're doing?
Well, if there's any new project that I have, they are overseas, right? They are not based in Calgary.
Are you doing a lot of playing overseas?
I'm visiting my home country of Poland pretty much every year,
Right.
and I'm always busy playing there.
Yeah.
I always do play there. Yes, I still keep in touch. You know, I've been in Canada for 29 years, and I never lose contact with my friends that I
Of course.
basically, you know, play with and learn from, and
Yeah.
work a lot
Yeah.
before I moved to Canada, and you know. But yeah, we are still in touch. I'm still doing work there, and I really enjoy it.
All right.
They're
In
all
Poland.
active.
In
Yes,
Poland. Yeah.
yes, it's in Poland. They are all active, and you know, still keep going and playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good environment. There's a lot of people who, I mean, listeners, people who love music, and they like to come to, you know, concerts, and they like to listen to live music, and so it's a pretty good place to be.
Different in Europe in terms of music, in terms of the interest in music, in terms of the culture of music, than you have found it here in, you know, the Western Hemisphere?
I should say there's a cultural different, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a different perception of few aspects of what we do.
Such as?
Such as, for example, the musical education, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that I grew up in an environment where basically we have a separate segment, I should say, for lack of better words, of educational system that is designed only to educate the musician.
Right.
From the very, very early stage.
You've discussed that with me
life.
before. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, coincidentally, you have been, you know, involved in some, you know, professional situations with my former teacher. You know,
Henry. What's his
Go
name?
ahead. Shashovitz.
Shashovitz. That's right. I'd never get it. I get
Yes.
Henry though. I got Henry.
But,
Hey Henry, how's it
But
going?
this is actually something like, let's say, that was that's different. That's different type of teaching and educating young players. I'll get back to it.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
the formal educational system is set up from the day one, from elementary school. Okay, and that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I remember I was in second grade. I remember, and I walk into my classroom, and we're just all kids, of course, everybody, and I see there's a new face in the room, and it was a young lady who was sitting behind the desk, and first thought that came to my mind was that we have a new teacher right here.
Yeah.
So the bell rang, and the doors closed, and we are sitting, you know, at our desks. Everybody is quiet, and suddenly the door opens, and our teacher walks in. So there's two persons, and our teacher introduced this lady to us.
Okay.
Right? And who was she?
Right.
She was actually sent by the music school
Okay.
on the same level, elementary level school, right?
Mhm.
To examine each of us in real time
Well,
and basically detect who should be transferred to the music school based on rhythmic value, singing a melody,
okay.
you know.
Mhm.
So we basically, she came just to check and find out who's got talent.
What grade was it? What grade
I
was it?
was grade 2, so
Grade
I was
2.
8 years old.
So they started musical
Yes,
education,
that's how it is. Still,
like
until today.
concentrated musical
Yes.
education, from grade 2.
Yes,
Yeah, you don't
that's
have
how
that.
it was.
You don't get that here.
And
You don't get that.
no, that I never, you know, as I said, I've been to Canada 29 years, and I never heard of
Right.
such a program.
Yeah.
Right, and so I was chosen, and four other my 4 other colleagues from the same class.
Were you chosen specifically for drums?
No,
No,
I was
just
chosen.
chosen to
Actually,
go
I
to
was
the-
chosen just to move there, and I went through the exam again. You know, so it was again the testing, and you know, my hearing, my rhythm, you know, how I feel it, and my memory, you know, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So basically, it was really interesting experience, because when I went to this particular music school, when I'm supposed to be transferred, after initial examination, they find out that I should be a violinist.
A violinist.
Violinist.
What did you think of it?
Yes. Well, I couldn't really, you know, I couldn't really say much about it, you know, because, you know, I was, what, 8 years old, 9 years old.
Did you have any interest in the violin?
Not really.
No.
Not really.
Right.
Not really. But you know, I always had a very keen ear towards the melody. I like melody.
Right.
Melody runs my music.
Well, that comes out.
anyway.
I think that comes out in your playing
Right.
anyway. Yeah.
So the melody always runs my musical life and feelings. You know, like that's how I basically kind of operate.
All right.
You know,
Right.
While
Is
playing-
around
while playing
the melody.
music, melody is very important for me. So
I can tell that when I hear you play. You are very particular about the melody. It sounds like to me. It sounds like you care about what's going on around you, just not about what you're doing.
well, I do. Yes, yes, yeah. I you know, it's just for me. One of the most important part is that I'm not playing in the band. I play with the band.
Right.
So, you know, that's very, you know, it's a big difference between those two dynamics,
Sure.
right? So
Yeah.
I listen, you know, I listen to people I'm playing with, and what I do, I kind of build my part accordingly to what I hear around.
Sure. And
Should
you,
be
but
fun.
at the same time, you don't mind
Yeah.
stretching, and
No,
if
if
the band goes a certain direction,
yeah,
you're right
of
there.
course, of course,
Yeah.
but in the same time, it has also its, you know, there is a way to do it, you know, and method to do it, right? You still, even if if I'm stretching, I still have to interact with people.
Right.
And I still need the support from them, because, you know, in terms of stretching, that you know, sometimes disasters happens, right? You know.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that.
There's a little ditch that you could hit, you know, accidentally, or
I think I've got a T-shirt for that in my shirt. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I fucked
So,
up. I'm pretty sure
yeah.
that's what it says. Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, that's the basic. You know, I really like to base my part on and lean on harmony and melody and how the song is built.
Sure.
As opposed to just to focusing, you know, let's say, selfishly just on my own part,
Right.
without, you know, care.
Well, that
for the
certainly
rest of
comes
it.
across in the way you play. But I want to get back to
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to get back to this.
So I'm in the school, and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
and I basically I never really make it, right? Because I never really decided to go for it,
Ah.
right?
Ah.
So basically, This part was basically of my life was closed, and I just went back to my regular elementary school.
Right.
And
Now why? Why didn't you take to this?
you know what? There was a combination of things. I can't recall exactly. I was too young, but there was something that I think I just had at the time I had an idea what I like to do. But when I heard that I cannot do it, I was kind of disappointed.
And what did you want?
guess.
What did you want to do?
I want to play drums. I want to play drums, and it wasn't based on me being totally aware of the fact that I want to play drums. It was more based on feeling. Because what I was doing at home, I was walking around and I was just banging the stuff all the time, having two pencils in my hands and just banging the stuff, whatever.
Okay.
I will use my mom's and my dad's turntable, and play their records, and I'll be banging, the furniture
So you
along with the song.
So you basically just gravitated for
pretty much
reasons that you can't really explain. Probably.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's almost like I was chosen by music. It's not that music.
That's pretty much
that
my
I choose
experience.
music. The music chose me.
Yeah, that's pretty much my experience.
Suck me in and say, okay, here you go.
Here you go.
That's what you do.
For better or worse.
Yes. So it was really interesting experience. I was doing this for quite a few years until I had a first experience with having access to the real drum, and it was snare drum. My first real drum ever in my life.
How old were you?
I was maybe 12.
Okay.
And I remember that I grabbed the stick, I struck the note, and it was just like it popped in my head it was like a light switch. Light was there, and here I am.
Wow.
I'm playing. I'm kind of like, it was Eureka. One of those, right? And fantastic feeling, man. I will never forget that.
Sure.
I'll never forget that.
So I totally understand what you're talking about in terms of epiphanal moments. I had one of those, well, my parents told me when I was 6 months old, I was pulling pots and pans out before I could walk and assembling them around me like a drum set and playing them. And so I don't even know where that came from, but I just always loved the drums. Another epiphanal moment, and I want to get into this with you, and the reason, you asked me before we started kind of formally talking, as to, because this is the inaugural broadcast of UNSUNG, and so you asked me, why would I be first? And the reason that you're first is because I had another one of those epiphanal moments, and that epiphanal moment was probably, well, I'm going to ask you, but I think it was something like 1991, and I heard you play, and to say that you impressed me would be to diminish something that was more of a revelation to me. So you certainly impressed me, but you also scared the shit out of me, because I realized that this might be what it takes, that you might have to be this good. I was telling myself, you're going to have to be that good if you want to do anything. And I think that's when you were playing with Ray back in those days. So I just want you to know the reason that I have you here is because I want you to know and once again, inspiration is a light word, because you really, without knowing it, we never spoke. I was too scared to speak to you back then. I just wanted to listen, and I wanted to absorb. Right. And I also wanted to ask myself really tough questions about hearing someone like you. And I suppose, as time has gone on, I've asked myself a few times when I've heard, the best players play. Nice. And that is, do I have that? Do I have what it takes? Do I have the drive and the determination and the guts and the boldness and the balls to sit for as long as it's going to take? Do I love that thing that much? And I mean, now we're years later, and obviously I do, because I put the time in. But the reason that you're here is because I just want to thank you for not even knowing, probably, certainly back then, what you did for me. So I want to
thank you very much, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's true, I didn't. I wasn't aware of it.
No, those times, when you were playing with Ray, I mean, way back in the day.
Yeah, that's a little later than 91.
Is it?
91 was just the beginning of my presence here, pretty much, because I moved to Canada in 1990.
Okay, so
In
this
the
is,
middle
yeah,
of it.
this is what I want to know. So first of all, I'd like to just know,
Yeah.
what made you make the move? Why did you move here?
Well, that's quite an interesting process that happened. I basically decided to. I wasn't sure that I will stay in Canada when I came here, right? But in the back of my head, there was that thought that if there is opportunities to stay, I'll push for it. So it was kind of, yes, no, maybe, yes, but it was more like leaning towards the yes side.
So initially,
Yes.
what was the motivation to come here? What happened?
I just want to progress. I just want to learn something. I just want to have an access to the environment in which the music that I listen to a lot back home is being made and produced and played. And even in please remember that I'm coming from different cultural background, right?
Of course.
Even our music is based on different beat, for example, or different rhythm,
Right,
it
different
has
time
different
signatures,
time
well,
signatures,
yeah.
etc., etc. So my preoccupation with my cultural folk music has a completely different twist to it, okay?
Yeah, I was,
And just because when I moved to Canada, I was already, adult, and I was already father too.
You were?
Yes, and so it was very interesting for me to have this opportunity to kind of get myself involved in real time, or basically to experience how this process of creation.
So, great. So why Calgary, though? Why not Los
Well,
Angeles?
just
Why
family,
not-
just because I actually it happened that I had a family here.
Oh, you did?
Right.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's something I never knew.
Yes.
Okay.
I have my relatives here, so that's why I came. We came for visit, basically.
Okay,
The
That's
initial
what I
plan
was
was just to
wondering.
came for visit, see how it is. Maybe it'll, if things are progressing positively, as we might make the decision to stay. And we did.
Yeah.
Because actually everything went accordingly to the yes plan, right?
Okay.
So.
And what had to be yes for you? What were the yeses? Was it? that
Well,
you could actually legally-
legality
Right.
legality of all situation. No black market work, nothing. I wasn't interested in it. Too much hassle, too much. Like
Yeah,
people
it's
have problems.
a problem. Like
It's a problem. It's the Canada is a country that has a sort of strict and good strict laws.
Right.
And
there's
it's a
not that-
law-obeying society.
Sure, there's not that many people.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not that many people here where you can actually get lost.
Exactly. So we both know, that it is a certain process,
Yeah.
and I as I said, I was already father and husband, and so I wasn't interested in being a scout. You know what I mean? Like I just want to act like
Like a regular guy?
I just want to do what I want to do,
Yeah,
right? If I decide to stay here, I just want to take advantage of it and learn as much as I can.
Yeah.
And have, since I have this opportunity, I shouldn't waste it.
So was Calgary compelling to you in terms of the musical scene back in
Yes,
1990?
because like today we have a 2019 year. And it was 1990, so the Calgary was a completely different place than it is today.
It sure
First
was.
of all, it was smaller.
Right.
It was smaller, slower. I might say even more happy.
Right.
You
I
know,
will agree. I will agree.
because the people weren't that. Let's put. It has a different dynamic. It had more. Let's say the dynamic or more maybe a smaller town.
Yeah, small town feel,
Small
right?
town feel.
Yeah.
The people didn't really run so fast. It wasn't like New York or Montreal or Toronto. you know?
Right.
No, it has a slower pace, and people are more relaxed, even always working hard, always being ready, getting ready, you know.
And yet friendly.
Yes, very friendly.
I remember
very
walking
friendly.
down. I remember walking down 8th Avenue Mall.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was weird if the guy that walked by you or the lady that walked by you didn't say hi. Everybody said hi to everybody.
Yes,
When you
absolutely.
walked by somebody was like, hey, and you were like,
Yes,
hey.
that's
right?
how it was
Now
in
you walk by
1990.
somebody, and if you say hey, they look at you like, what do you want? What are you talking about?
It might be.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a different vibe.
Yes, it has a different vibe, but that vibe from 1990 that I still retain in my memory is still present in many places today in Calgary, because Calgary is still Calgary, right? There's still, how's it going, eh? You know, it's still that attitude is somewhere there.
Sure.
So
you've maintained a benevolence, a community of benevolent figures
yes.
within the city. Yeah.
Yeah. So and you know, and it was very open, very friendly, very inviting, and people and legal side of it, like government and everything, all those parts were playing very positive, you know, part of basically, you know, introducing me to my idea of staying here.
Sure.
Because without that support, I probably wouldn't stay.
Yeah.
I'd probably go back home.
Right.
Right. If it wasn't that friendly, I'll go back. Yes.
So
definitely.
was that different than your experience in Poland? I mean, was there more friendliness here, or would you say?
No, I wouldn't compare the friendliness of Canadian society to friendliness because we are, you know, I'm coming from very friendly society too. Well, of course, you know, like we're people and we are emotional. We are, you know, we do all kinds of stuff. We're passionate. You know, like we do stuff too.
And, well, not only that, but your country comes out of, you know, not long before you were born, would have come out of a period of wartime.
Yes,
and a very stressful time for the people.
Oh, of course. Yeah. You know, let's put it this way. I belong to the generation that was born at the time of so-called Cold War between West and East.
Yeah.
So, you know, that dynamic, you know, was actually quite interesting for us to grow up.
How so?
Well, you know, it's just, you know, it's really difficult to explain that because it's a very, 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 you know,
esoteric. Was it more of a feeling?
Oh, it's everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's very. It's really difficult to explain that. You know, but it was one of the most interesting experiences in my life.
Living through
that time.
Yeah.
Yes. Because it's still based on humanity and how it emerges, how it cope with problems and situations and all this, you know,
now,
political stuff and
let me ask you a question.
non-political stuff.
Sure. Was there an effect on the people? Was there a residual effect, would you say, you know, at the time that you grew up, around the people, that surrounded the people after World War II? Was there some sort of residual sort of, I don't know what the emotion would be, anger or distrust, or had the country sort of gotten itself back together in a sense, and the people were okay with what had happened during World War II?
No one will ever agree with, and no one will be ever okay with what happened during the Second
Not that I mean
War.
okay with what happened, but just okay that your country had sort of been taken over, and that you know, without, you know what I mean, that your people didn't ask for that.
Well, nobody asked for that. You
Right.
know, we weren't the only country, of course, in the world that was actually affected by this, you know, ugly thing, ugly period of time.
Yeah.
But the truth is that, of course, it has a incredible impact on my society's psyche.
Right.
psychologically, it was very, very, very residual, as you said.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a lot of signs of, the history in it.
And people
And we
fighting.
grew up with history, basically.
people-
We were brought up with the history.
Right.
Like, there was no negligence towards the history books.
Mhm.
No,
Mhm.
no. We knew in and out about it.
Yeah.
From,
Did it make you angry? Did it
No,
affect you?
it never made me angry because I never see. It's how to put it I never experienced what my parents experienced.
Right.
I learned from them. It was basically they verbally just transferred this experience to me, and they told me the stories.
Right.
Right. But I never experienced that.
Right.
So
I see what you're saying.
just receiving this information, I couldn't basically emotionally enter the same zone that they were coming from
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's impossible.
Right. But did you see its effect on them? Could
Of
you
course,
see its effect?
of course. Of course. Their lives were destroyed, basically.
Yeah.
The generation of my parents was basically destroyed psychologically. It wasn't easy for these people.
No.
Or nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody has an easy task.
Are your parents still here? Are they
No.
still? No.
No, my both parents are gone already.
Mm-hmm.
But it it's just the way it is because the transition from the Second World War into the new era, which was the Stalinism.
Right.
That's what my parents, the Second World War for my parents was basically when they were like 8, 9 years old. Okay, they experienced Hitler. When Hitler was basically removed, they were teenagers and Stalin came. So,
Right.
everybody knows what happened during the Stalinist era, right? So, imagine that.
So it was frying pan
You're
to
just
fire.
basically born in, and you have you are in your sandbox for 7, 8 years, and suddenly the bombs are flying all over, and then,
Right.
so and all nightmare ends when they are around their 18, 19 year of their life.
Right.
So
that's
their
what they
childhood,
know. Right.
the whole childhood, all fun,
Right.
happiness and everything is completely destroyed.
And their most formative years would have
Yes,
been
the
surrounded with
formative
all
is
this.
just basically
chaos.
yes, because it's all
Yeah.
based on fear.
Wow.
They're gonna die,
Right.
right? So
Right.
it's just really, really, really ugly
Right.
for my parents and many other people from
And they-
their generation.
Sure, and they probably had a perspective, I suppose, that you or I certainly can't really share in. That we could never see the world the way they would have seen
No.
the world.
No,
Yeah.
you probably don't because the Second World War never entered North America.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah.
North America entered Second World War, but they basically government shipped their army overseas.
Right.
And that's it.
closest
That's
they would've got was
that's
Pearl
how
Harbor.
North America was
Right.
involved. So was Canadian Army, etc.
There were submarines, I know,
Yes,
trolling
absolutely.
New York.
Oh yeah,
Harbor.
of course, of course.
But
of
it
course,
never.
but-
Yeah.
But there was never, the Hitler never moved with the army to North America.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just like it's a completely different experience, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's a Canadian Army and American Army, and the soldiers fight there, and they die, and everything, and
Right.
that happened. Man.
Omaha
It's just,
Beach
and they
and,
liberated places,
Juno Beach,
absolutely.
yeah.
Canadian Army is until today welcome with the flowers in Holland.
Yeah.
Today,
Right.
Today, you go and say, "I'm Canadian." Man, the doors open, and you are just being treated like you are the king.
There's a great appreciation.
Absolutely
so-
great appreciation towards Canadians who liberated Holland,
Yeah.
right? So,
Well, that's
it's just-
I want
yeah.
to take that moment, just to,
Absolutely.
just to get that sense from
Yeah.
you, because
Yeah.
you lived close to it, and of course your
Yeah.
parents lived through it.
But see, going back to music,
Yeah.
so this particular Cold War idea basically separates me from you, okay? Because it was all political, right? So we weren't basically too close because the information flow was constantly being distorted by political forces.
Right.
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 you know.
So you had a bias in some sense.
Yeah, of
or-
course.
Or some twisted
But you
understanding.
know what,
just as
we just because, I don't know if you're aware of it, but I'm from a country that history of, immigration of Poles to the rest of the world, around the world, we are everywhere.
Mhm.
Like Polish people are everywhere.
Right, yeah,
Everywhere.
yeah, I've
Okay.
noticed that.
Yes,
Mhm.
we immigrate. There is our Polish today Polish, like our government estimates that there's another 40 millions of us outside of Poland.
Really?
Yes,
That-
and of Polish extraction, originals and of Polish extraction.
Right.
There's tons of us, right?
Huh.
So we have over 200 years of history of immigrating.
Right.
So going back now, fast forward,
Mhm.
and we are again Cold War. Where I am, where is this all coming from? So immigration. So people have families in the West. So some of people had this privilege to have passport and go and bring stuff back to Poland. So that's how information was coming back to me.
Mhm. Okay.
Via the Iron Curtain, or
Right.
it was called at the time by
Right. Mhm.
political establishments, right?
Right.
And we had access to radio stations that were coming from England and
America.
America,
Mhm.
and all short waves,
Right.
unfortunately. So the quality was really, really bad,
Right.
but that information was there, and so we had this access to it, right?
Mm.
But people were bringing in all kinds of information in terms of books, and records, vinyls, because at
Right.
the time the only vinyls were basically available, right? There was
Sure.
only,
Oh, of course.
only,
Of course. And was that giving you a different impression then of?
Yes, of course. But I
of
grew
the
up
Western culture?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. But I have to admit that as my country was progressing after this period of, especially after Stalin died,
Mhm.
the Poland kind of started, experiencing a little bit more liberation.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
we're still under strong control of those forces from Moscow,
Right. Mhm.
but we had this sense of liberation, kind of, we sensed it. It was up in the air. Okay.
Mhm.
And also the Polish government at the time, even though the probably the Western propaganda or political establishment still strongly criticized, but the government in Poland at the time that I was actually entering the music created a lot of actually possibilities for me to have access to information.
Right. Right. Now, was that Lech Walesa? Was that?
No, that's
No?
later.
Later.
That's
Much later?
No,
Okay.
that's much later.
Right.
Much later.
Mhm.
I'm talking about late 60s and beginning of 70s.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. Right. So you were starting to be affected by the Western music, by what
You
we're
know
into
what?
there.
I tell you, yes, but I was still, I grew up in an environment that there was a lot of musicians in Poland,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they were good. They're
Sure.
good.
If you have a school dedicated. to
Yeah,
that,
absolutely,
of course.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And mind you, we have going back to the educational system that I kind of touched
Mhm.
initially when we started the conversation.
Yep.
Every major city in Poland has a conservatory of music.
Right.
Every single big city
Mhm.
has a conservatory of music.
Right.
And Poland, the territory of Poland is like twice as small than Alberta.
Yeah. It's quite something.
And there's 40 million people in it,
Right. Yeah. It's quite something.
Yes,
It's quite something.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's my hometown hall that has a conservatory of music
So let me
with
stop
a
you.
jazz program.
Great. Let me stop you just for a
Mhm.
second. Why is that? Why is it that a place so small, of course, many more people,
Mhm.
but a place that small cares that much or has that kind of motivation and concern for its culture? and why don't we? What is it? What's the difference? What's the difference in that?
I think it's based on our genetic code,
Genetic
which is
code?
pole, you know.
Right.
That's how we cannot basically imagine that our country can be empty culturally.
Right.
Music music play unbelievable part of daily life.
Could that not?
Every man and woman
Could
in the
that
country.
could that not be said of Europe as a whole?
Yes,
Like
I
Austria,
think,
Germany.
I think everywhere you go around Europe, you see it's a little bit different perception. People, experience music, literature, theater, and there's a different perception. Okay.
Maybe
And
it's-
I'm not
is it-
saying that it's better than North American, or I'm not saying this. I do not want to use those terms as it's better over there, or it's worse.
Sure, and I don't think that
better here or
I wouldn't
over
say
there.
that it's better,
No.
but I would say
It's just
that there is more, that there is a focus on the history of the people themselves and their place in that history, and I think that that's what we lack. We have yet to create history for ourselves that gives us the opportunity to have the culture that we need.
See, if it wasn't for music and literature and art, the Polish spirit will be completely destroyed during those really destructive moments in our history, like Second World War.
Right. So it wasn't
It was
commerce
art.
that kept you together.
No,
it was
no,
art.
no, it was just
art.
just art
That
and
kept you
people
together.
and people like we always basically like in spite of anything, whatever happens in our country, there was always artistic. The community was always active.
Right.
Even if they had to act underground, even if they had to risk their lives to be killed for that, they will do it.
Right. Because that's what mattered
Yes.
to them.
That's how literature was basically preserved, music, theater.
Right. The things that really matter.
Yes.
The things that are of the heart.
Yes.
You might say. Yeah.
Mind you, but before the Second World War, the Poland was under partition. And that means that Poland didn't exist as an independent country on the map of the world.
It was tied then to
No, Poland was basically under control of 3 different countries.
3 different countries.
Yes,
Huh.
Austro-Hungarian, Russians, and Germans
Huh.
for 123 years.
Right.
And Polish language was illegal.
And which?
Illegal.
Yeah.
We couldn't, people back then couldn't have a Polish school, didn't exist. Everything was underground.
Right.
Everything was preserved for 123 years.
Oh.
Literature, everything.
And
And people
what-
were dying for it, right?
And what was it? What was the catalyst that made you rise out of that? Out of the end of the 123 years?
It was the Treaty of Versailles that granted the territory of Poland back to, and it happened in 1921. Treaty of Versailles.
All right. Treaty of Versailles.
Treaty of Versailles.
Right,
Yes.
yeah.
It started in 1919.
Right. Which was which
And-
came about after World
Yes.
War War. Right.
It started in the whole idea of granting and returning to Polish people, returning the territory to Polish people,
Right.
and call it Poland as an independent country.
Right.
Again, after 123 years, the idea was initiated in 1919 and finalized 2 years later, with the great help of France at the time.
Yeah. Of course.
So that's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so genetically, I mean, here's a question that may be too esoteric to ask, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you feel a certain proclivity in yourself to in terms of the history of your country itself, to be a fighter, to be someone who stands up for themselves or what's right? Is there anything in you that you think is genetically predisposed just to?
Maybe not genetically, but psychologically, because my society that I grew up in, it was always like, let's do it right, let's stand up for it, let's not give up, let's, fight for it,
Right.
It's just like that spirit of
Because you
fighter
seem
is
like that
there.
to me, right?
Like, there was always fight there, Yeah.
It's amazing history. It's
It's
absolutely
a really, really, really thick book. My history of my country is a very thick book.
Yeah.
Very thick.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Full of
It's a 1,000 years old country.
Yeah.
Okay. And has incredible history, and very painful. And there's
Probably a lot of
periods
blood,
of
shed.
many periods of very, very painful experiences. So it's very, that's how it is, and that's why I was born, and I love my country. I live in Canada. I love Canada. I'll never say a wrong word about Canada.
Right.
This is my home. But
You
I
feel
mean,
that?
this is my home, of course. Canada is my home. Poland is my home, my first home, and I always will be.
Yeah.
I'm better patriot, Polish patriot now than I was when I was born.
Were you?
Yes.
Probably because you have.
Because now I have
You have a more objective
I have
approach to
a completely different perception, right? View, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I distance myself from my own place, and it's good for me. I think this is really, really great thing to do for every human being.
Which is?
Because we got really biased by our own culture.
Of course we are. Of course we are. Don't you find out whenever you travel? You just learn and grow.
Yes, you can really get caught up in your own bubble.
Yeah.
And we might lose completely the perception of the rest of the world. And you might then find yourself just looking via, at rest of the world via this particular bubble that you're living in.
Right.
Without having any other perspective and knowledge what's happening outside.
Yeah.
And
we see that in entire countries.
Absolutely. It's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But that's why people who, I wish everybody had enough time and resources, to just travel and spend time, because, you cannot really gain a perspective of what happens in Mexico or Cuba or Poland and Czech Republic, France, Holland, England, if you don't live there.
Right.
Okay, if you go just to a hotel and spend a week there,
You're not really getting it.
you don't really learn it.
Yeah. No, I went to.
Right?
I went to London last summer, and I spent almost 3 months in London.
Well, that's already 3 months. That's something. You might
Well,
have.
no, I started to get an idea of
Yeah.
what that town was all about, and
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I love the shit out of it. I love that place.
I believe that.
A big city, but I'll tell you what, in terms of music,
Yeah.
people still give a shit. They still care.
It's true.
They play with passion. They want people that play with passion, that play with fire. And I met, some great people when I was there. I had a great experience, man. And I would go back any second. And I would spend more time there. And I was doing some recording work when I was there, and I loved it. I loved the city. But you're absolutely right. I mean, unless you get out of here or wherever you may be, you're going to start to suffer from bias or from, just from the fact that everything that you experience is the same, and so you believe that that's the way everything is.
Right.
Or everything should be.
Yeah.
Right?
I think what happens that when a person is moving to a different place in the world, a different culture, and like me, for example, at the beginning when I moved to Canada, I had to readjust. I had to kind of find my way in new situation, right? Because we do here in Canada, we do exactly the same things that people are doing in my own country, but it's just different perception. It's different touch. You know what I'm saying? It's the same task, but it's just completely different performance, right? And I had to find that way into it, right? Because my way doesn't actually play along with what is happening here, right? So I have to spend time. But soon you start overcoming those difficulties, you know, to fit in.
Right.
You realize that it's not that difficult, but there's a couple of hints that you have to apply to your thinking, basically, you know, and life becomes a lot easier.
Well, it seems to me like you've settled in here quite nicely.
You know? Oh, because I enjoy it. I basically give up because you know, you come to a new place, you don't know language, you know, there's a lot of kind of, you know, fear that, you know, you might, you're stiff, you know, it's just, oh my God, you know, like, it's really, really challenging, man.
Right. But you've been accepted here. Do you feel that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my family and my son, my wife, everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And you've done a hell of a job. I mean, like I said, you know, you were in those days where I needed my ass kicked. You did it without even knowing.
Oh man,
And,
I know.
yeah, and it was good. It was good. So yeah, so you had to come all the way from Poland to do it, but I'm glad you did, and I'm glad you stuck around. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Just, you know, fly these out to you. Best gig? What's the best? What's a memorable? I know every gig you do, I'm sure is great, and maybe there's a couple that suck. But do you have a gig that stands out to you? Because you played with a lot of great people.
Yes, I play with, well, I met quite a few people, you know, and I play really nice gigs, especially back home. I play really nice gigs here in Canada too, but I have a lot of good memories doing the gigs here in Canada with great country players.
Yeah.
Great, yes, I do, and I met quite a few people that I really like enjoy playing with here. But the most, I think the most important, that informative, and one of those like you, this is incredible compliment you telling me that I actually kick your butt, man. You do something like that.
You did.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it is a very humble compliment. But in 1981, 9 years before I moved to Canada, I was still living in Poland, and at the time I was, of course, you know, young kid, but already, you know, running the top shelf, you know. And I was with the top acts, and I made it, you know, to the really nice place.
In a sense, you were a rock star, is what people used to say. In Poland, you were known in Poland.
Yes. Yeah, I became known musician, not just to musicians, but also to people. But I had this beautiful experience, because before I made it to the top, I was in the club scene, and I was involved in all kinds of situations, but I spent a lot of time listening to jazz rock,
Such as
fusion jazz rock, right? And particularly, it was Billy Cobham. And because Billy Cobham, after he left my Vision Orchestra, he basically became a leader.
Yeah, did his own thing.
Yeah, he started doing his own thing, and he does it until today.
Yeah.
And so Billy Cobham was that first drummer really who made huge impression on many, not just drummers, but many musicians.
Sure. Yeah.
But drummers particularly, because his technique and his style was so unique and very deeply rooted in his culture.
Right.
Where he was coming from.
Right. When I think about Billy Cobham, I think about his speed and his articulation.
Absolutely.
Or just
Absolutely.
You know.
So you know, that guy made huge impact on everybody, and he made huge impression on me, right? And even though I never really particularly choose to follow that same way to sound like him, or because in the end of the day, the truth is that you have to speak your own language.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As a player.
Yeah.
You have to find your own personality, and you have to be yourself.
I know exactly.
You cannot be just somebody else.
No. You can steal anything you want.
Yeah,
but you've
whatever.
got to make it your own.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have to be yourself. Yeah, right. And there's no other way.
Right.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
And here I am. I'm landing actually a gig on the same stage, sharing the stage with Billy Cobham in 1981.
Oh no shit.
And that's the most important gig for me from that perspective. Okay.
Right.
It was 1981, and since 1956, 1957, I believe we have a jazz festival in Warsaw annually, happens, and it's called Jazz Jamboree.
Ah.
And
this is where Billy would
and
have
this
been.
is the Jazz Jamboree Festival 1981.
Right.
And
So did you stand
and I'm basically, and there's 3 bands being scheduled to play that evening. And the room is packed. There's a couple thousand people there. It's downtown Warsaw.
Did you know Billy was playing?
No.
Yeah.
No, I knew that Billy's playing.
Oh, you knew, yeah.
Of course. Because we were first act.
Right.
I was playing first. The second act was Didier Lockwood from France, the violinist. And Billy Cobham was the headliner with his band.
And what did that do to you? What was that?
Well, let's try and imagine that I'm prior to that, for let's say 2-3 years, I'm basically completely consumed by listening to his records.
Right.
Because they were fantastic, not just his drumming, but his music.
Yeah.
He was just composing really good music.
Yeah. I think of
And-
Yellow Cabriolet and
like
like
Crosswinds, listen to these
Yeah.
records, it's just a killer. It's just fantastic, compositions, right? And so this is a huge amount. For me, it's just a huge, right? And I'm there, sharing stage with him. Not just that. After the gig, I'm actually jamming with his bass player and with his guitar player.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm sitting behind the kid and we are actually playing together. So this is really beautiful experience.
Did you meet Billy that night?
No.
You didn't?
No, I never met him personally.
Because I have a Billy Cobham story. And I don't know if I should share it, but maybe I will. Billy Cobham was at the PASIC convention in New Orleans in 1993, I think. And of course I was living in Baton Rouge at the time, and it was in New Orleans.
Right.
All right, so it was like an hour drive, right? And so I went to PASIC every day, and I saw Weckel. I got on stage with Joe Morello.
Awesome.
Like I actually got up with Joe Morello because I asked him a question, and he was like, "Well, you're never going to see it from down there. You better come up here." And I was like, "Oh shit!" He wants me to come up on stage. So I came up on the stage and I stood right over his shoulder, and just one of those things you never forget, right?
Right, for
so,
sure.
So Billy, I'm at the PASIC convention and I see Cobham, and I'm like, shit, I would really just like to, just maybe like even a minute, just to say hey and, say thanks, like I don't want an autograph or anything like that. I'm not going to bug him. And so he's talking to this brother, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to hang out like back here. I'm not going to get in anybody's way. And I'm going to stand back.
Yes.
And I stood back like 20 feet.
Yeah.
And I stood there for 5 minutes, and I'm like, that's okay. I'll stand here for as long as it takes, right? I stood there like 10 minutes, and he looked at me a couple times and kind of gave me, one of these. And I'm like, okay, I'm not moving. And I swear to God, Andrzej, I stood there for a half an hour, and he didn't even like acknowledge me. And I'm like, Billy, I love you, but screw you, I'm out of here, man. And so I never actually talked to him. But that's my Billy Cobham experience. I mean, I got, almost this close to him, and I wanted to talk to him. I just so wanted to just bend his ear for a minute, you know.
Right.
And he played it passing.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, just blew the doors off the place.
Right. Right.
He's amazing. He's Billy
Yeah.
Collins. What he's.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was fantastic experience, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But please remember that before I've been involved in this situation, I'm still growing up. Prior to that, I'm listening to his records, but I'm with local players, and all these guys that I was basically learning from, they weren't coming from America. They are my local guys,
Right.
and they were good, man.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it was different, different, let's say, okay, the perception of, let's say, for example, jam session, like you go to the jam, if you are not able to perform properly, they wouldn't let you stay on stage. Okay,
Right.
you'll finish the song and they go like, okay, you're done.
Right.
You're done.
Which is
you
really
have to-
the way
you
a
have to
jam
go.
should be.
You have to
Yeah.
go and learn that.
Yeah.
And when you know, come back. Okay.
Which is what it should be.
Yeah. Well, really, the kind of sort of disciplined and kind of harsh sometimes. Because
Right.
it might hurt. It might hurt, like, especially
Absolutely.
when you're a little kid.
Right.
Suddenly you are basically being refused. It's just like you're done.
But that'll either make you work or it'll make you give up.
Well, exactly,
Right?
but it makes you stronger,
Yeah.
right? I believe,
Yeah, me too.
And, so they were a great influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was listening to, it became my work 5-6 years later. Because whereas I started with records, well, these big people that I listen to, my locals, and people from my country, musicians and bands that I was listening to on the radio, and I'm landing the gigs with them 5-6 years later. So I can see the progress, and the progress was basically due to a care that I received from these people, right? Because I was a lot younger, but I was really, really into it.
Yeah.
I really want to be with them, and I just by possibly being so naturally behaving, they knew that they just basically just couldn't neglect me, right? I just need to be with them, and I just did anything
Whatever
except for ugly stuff. Of
Yeah.
course, I did anything in positive terms.
Whatever it took with
I really
integrity.
because I was so open, I was like open book, like write on me, okay? Just tell me what to do because I want to learn.
Yeah.
So I was a little kid, okay, and they really took me under their wing and they showed me the places, and I kind of learned the direction from them. So all this, stuff like Billy Cobham and Motown, Miles Davis, and all these huge, acts from America, they came later. It all started locally. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then but this is I started with rock music, like really,
Right.
like rock music, like sucked me in big time. Before I started listening to the jazz, it took a long time, like at least 7 years of me listening to rock music, and
Before you actually started getting a taste of
jazz, yes. Because it just, I guess it's the same until today.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
still listening to a lot, jazz music, but I don't really perform this music every day.
No,
right?
no. Well, I'm sort of the same way.
Because I
because-
found my vehicle, that
Yeah.
I travel. I'm like, oh, that feels good.
Yeah,
And then I love to listen to.
And the music that I
and I'm
grew up
fine
with,
with that.
sure, and the music that I grew up with, really, primarily is rock. I didn't grow up in jazz. I mean, I don't know if people think that I'm a jazz player, but I'm really not. I'm a rock player. That's what I play. I mean, I've done my fair share of jazz gigs, but every one of them has screamed back at me, "You suck. You know, I have so far to go in those those types of idioms. It's not even funny. You know, I know where I do my best work, and I know the music culturally that speaks to me the most, and that's typically what I play. Now, Poland was kind of your training ground, right? Would you say? I mean, it was where you learned and had most of your experiences, at least formative.
Oh yeah,
right.
But there was a lot of really good players there.
Yeah.
And it still is.
Yeah.
Still is.
Since you've been here, do you feel like you've continued to grow as a
Yes.
player? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I never stop.
Right. Well, and I
never
wouldn't
did
think that a
stop.
guy like you ever would.
I never stop. You know, it's just, if I stop learning and decide that I know, I'm done.
Right. Right.
Right. And I'm not done.
Are you practicing?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
What
do.
kind
I
of-
still practice, but excuse me. I'm not overly, you know, involved in it. I'm not killing myself with that, right? But I mean, I still do, of course. I still maintain shape, and you know, I do what is necessary.
And you're teaching.
I do.
You're teaching
I do
that?
teach. Yes.
What
Yeah.
what kind of projects are you doing these days? Like who locally are you working with?
Oh, I'm involved with you know, guys who play rock and roll music.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with this band called Playground Zone.
Oh yeah.
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 Are
Are you digging that? Those guys have been around for a long time.
Really good guys.
Yeah, they've been around a long time, right?
They're 25 years.
25
The band
years.
is around.
God.
I've been with them for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Before that, I was for almost 9 years with Rustic Brothers.
Rustic Brothers. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
and we disbanded after that long period of time, and now I'm with Playground Zone, so I freelance more, I travel more, you know, and yeah, it's all, you know, it's all good.
And how is life? Just good? I mean, you're
Life
married.
is-
You're
life
married,
is great.
right? How long have you been with your wife?
Oh, I know my baby since 1985,
85.
so we are 34 years together.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And your
very
son?
much.
How old's your son now?
My son is right now 32.
32. Wow. Wow. So is mine. My oldest.
There you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You know, I gotta say, you know, it just feels like maybe we're coming to the end, but I gotta say, man, like, you know, I have longed for this conversation with you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
your call and, like, you know.
Yeah, and I hope we get the chance to do this again. I hope this is our
Absolutely, with great pleasure, man.
time.
Like, we'll
You know,
talk
our time.
more because it's like, you know, it's a long time, man. Like, we
It
just
is.
touched.
We have known about
we
each
just
other.
touched the
I
fraction
know.
of this, you know.
I know, it's a shame, right? Because
Yeah.
we've known each other a long
Yeah.
time. We really have.
Yeah.
And I respect the hell out of you. Whenever you guys get a chance, whoever is out there getting a chance, you know, check out Anj. You know, when you know, go to one of his
Thanks,
gigs.
man.
Playground Zone, and I know he'd love the support. And obviously, you can tell right now he's a hell of a guy to talk to. I just want to say to everyone out there that this is number one, and I want you to join me for my next guest, and that I'm not going to tell you right now who that is. You're just going to have to wait for that. But Andrzej, I want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we'll
Thank
see
you.
you guys next week.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Pleasure.
All right.